what we look for in the market as derivatives traders is a market, okay, which is shifting all the time. Okay, we are not married, okay, to one view of the market, which is that the market will go up all the time. We are open to the possibility of the market going sideways. We are open to the possibility of the market going up. We are open to the possibility of the market going down. And once, okay, we are alive and open to these kind of possibilities, what we do is we identify little points in the charts of what we know. It's not in me to understand everything, okay, which the market is wanting to do. It's not in me at all. I would not understand 100% of all that the market is doing. Nobody can understand the market 100% fully. But what I do is, like, I work with certain setups. Like, I have a setup, okay, which is called the failed auction, which you all know about. And if the market confirms that setup, I work a trade alongside it. I also, okay, work on a setup, okay, which is called an IB30 candle, which is my 30-minute initiative buying candle, which was here, right? So the last IB30 candle, okay, came in about 2 days back, around here. So I have a certain process, okay, which I work with it. I do not understand the market fully, and I don't want to understand the market fully. But what I know is that once I have this kind of a setup in place, like this is what I call a special bar out of all the bars which are there. And I make a rule, okay, around this. And I say that the market is positive above this IB30 bar, right? In my way of looking at it, in my way of process, or in my way of looking at it, I would say, okay, that this market is positive about 23,070 and negative below it. Okay, and I will activate this trade of about 23,180, provided, okay, I get some greens or demand. What is this bar? But what I want to draw upon over here is the equation between buyers and sellers, or demand and supply. And at every point in time, this equation keeps changing. And because it keeps changing, price moves. And price moves only when demand, price moves up only when demand is greater than supply. Price moves lower when supply is greater than demand. So once we understand this market as a basic math between buyers and sellers, between demand and supply, what we have to understand is how do we track this demand and supply line. And all my years, okay, I have been trading. I have been able to do that, okay, only by what I call an order flow chart. There is somebody buying and there's somebody selling. Now, if you just strip yourself up from all those things, okay, which you've been told, that there is a technical indicator and this indicator is important and this is going to predict the future, and if this goes to this level, the market bounces and this and that. That indicator itself, okay, was based, okay, on demand and supply. And that it says over there, right, it's oversold. What does it mean? Okay, that there was a lot more, okay, supply coming in. Or overbought. What does it mean? Okay, that means, okay, there was too much demand over there, right? So everything is still based on demand and supply. And what we are asking you to do is take the focus away from understanding the market in terms of indicators and start looking at it in terms of demand and supply. And once, okay, you get to that kind of an equation where you're looking at the market in terms of where demand is higher, where supply is higher, okay, you will be at a much more better position to understand how it is going, right? So just to quickly sum up, okay, where we are right now.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Am I coming across? So welcome to this 5 p.m. session of Monday, and let's chat with the structure, and then we'll move on to the order flow and current market information. So we have on screen the weekly report, which has a brief about what we did last week in spot. So in market profile, we try to understand the structure and we go from top to bottom. We look at the monthly, then the weekly, and then the daily. So on the weekly time frame, last Monday we had this 5 p.m. session wherein we had seen how we started the week with an initiative selling tail, and we had discussed this. We had discussed this that as long as this initiative selling tail is retained, we are looking for more downside in the weekly time frame. That is what happened. What we did last week after this initiative selling tail, we left another initiative selling tail on Tuesday. We made lower lows. We broke below the previous week's low, and then we went on to drive lower even on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, what we saw was typical seaside extension which failed on the downside and gave us a failed auction. We discussed about this failed auction on Thursday as well as Friday in the live session, and we saw how the failed auction gives us a cue about one party getting failed. So although the main trend was lower, was to the downside, what was happening is because of the imbalance down, most of the inventory had gotten too short, and because of which it was getting exhausted. And then when we saw this initial balance being extended, it got rejected and it came back into the IB initial balance. So that is what gave us this failed auction, and this failed auction gave us a target. It gave us a 180 year and 280 year objective, and what we saw was we saw a bounce back to this selling extension handle which we got on Tuesday. This was at 23233 in Nifty spot, and we made a high of 23235 on Thursday. So that was telling us that this objective of this failed auction is almost done, and the supply is coming back here again. And we got more evidence of the supply taking complete control with another extension on handle on Friday at this 23007 level. After which we made a double distribution trend down the day on Friday. The weekly profile was that of a trend one to the downside with completely lower value, and we were looking for a tag of this lower weekly VPOC 22745, which has been dodging us for the last 3 weeks, because the week from 27th January to 1st February, when we made this lower lows, we were looking for a test of this, but what we got was a failed auction on the weekly time frame at the 22798 level, and from there we went on to get this bounce. And so this week, because we had a trend down week with completely lower value, it was inevitable that this VPOC get tagged, and we would had to see how we reacted at this VPOC. These were the hypos for today. These are the spot hypos. Futures we track it separately, and we have the business areas mentioned in a different post. So this was the spot hypos, and what we saw in the morning, we can just open up the spot chart. I will take in the questions, whatever are there, guys. So do post in your queries, and once I finish up with the structure part, I'll definitely answer whatever questions are there. So what we have done today is we opened with a probe lower. We broke below this weekly VPOC of 22745. But what we have done in market profile, what we see is how much we can extend. And for that, we have the initial balance, the first hour range. So if we feel that the sellers are doing a good job, we after the initial balance is over and the C side is done with, we look for a range extension in that direction. So we needed to make lower lows in the D or E or later. But what happened in contrast was we left a very small A period buying tail. And although we had an A period selling tail also when the initial balance got over, and this was at previous week's value, the bias when the IB got over, if I just show you the A and B, the bias here was still to the downside because we had left an initiative selling tail at previous week's value. But what we needed to do was sustain below this weekly VPOC and make a range extension lower, which we did not. So what we saw in the C and D period was we got back above the initial balance high. So C side, we take it with a pinch of salt. So when the range extension continued in the D, it was telling us the supply is not coming in today after hitting this objective of 22745. So that is the reason what we saw today was a pullback low in G, and then we went on to make new highs into the close. So this is what how we are placed in spot, and as long as this 22745 is not taken out and sustained, we are not looking for more downside. So the we and whereas on the upside, today's value would be the reference. In case we open about today's value, we are looking for a test of this weekly VPOC of 23068. So these hypos will get updated in the weekly report for tomorrow. We'll add in the latest daily data and we'll add in the hypos for tomorrow. But structure wise, what we have done today is formed a normal variation profile to the upside. The buyers have been successful in making range extensions higher, and we have closed well above the initial balance high. So we'll need to see if we can sustain above this highs of today. Then we are likely to go on for a test of this 23068. Yes, we have one extension handle at 23007 from Friday, which will be the reference that will have to be taken out. So this is as far as the Nifty spot is concerned. Let us now have a quick look at the Bank Nifty spot. So what we do in the weekly report, we have this daily chart put up, and we also have the hypos marked up. The hypos which are given in the table are also shown as these dashed lines on the chart. So you can easily make out how the what the auction is doing. So you can see how this 227,745 held, and we went on to get about this buy side hypo of 22954, which is where we have closed. So this 23007 would be our immediate upside reference to be taken out. So this is as far as the Nifty spot is concerned. Let's have a quick look at the Bank Nifty spot. Bank Nifty also started with an initiative selling tail last week, which held. The bounce we had in the L was not able to take this out. So we continued the down move on Tuesday with another initiative selling tail and a drive down on Wednesday. But just like what we saw in Nifty, the drive down got stalled with a FA, and this FA in Bank Nifty spot came right uh, at the monthly POC of 48728. I had mentioned at the starting of this session how we have the top to bottom approach. So we once the month gets over, we have the monthly references put out. We have a monthly report which is put up on the website, and as per the monthly report, we give importance to three very key levels. The first one would be the rollover point, which was at 49720 for this February series. The second would be the POC of the previous month. So the January POC in Bank Nifty was at 48728, and then we have the series VWAP, which was at 49283. So what we did, we saw last week here on Wednesday was a failed auction right above the monthly POC. I think 48734 48734 was the failed auction. And once we got the failed auction, we saw the sellers are failing at this level. So the failed auction is just telling you one party is getting failed on a temporary basis. So that gives us a quick move in the opposite direction, but that does not mean that the trend has reversed. So for the trend to reverse, we need confirmation of initiative activity, initiative buying, initiative selling. But what the failed auction gives is a failure of a party, not a initiative activity. Because one party is failed, the other party takes advantage of that and drives the auction in their favor. So how far the auction goes, we is not clear. We will need to keep in focus the day to day development and see how we fare. So what this field auction did was it gave rise to another seaside extension on Thursday, and this resulted in another failed auction which came right at this POC of 49829. So when you get a failed auction at the lows and then this gets negated by a failed auction on the upside, it tells you that the sellers are back in business, and because of which we went on to move lower for the rest of the week and made this new lows into the close. So the weekly on Bank Nifty was also a trend down profile, although it was not a very elongated one like the one we saw in Nifty. It was still a trend down one with mostly overlapping value. So what we were doing, what we were expecting today was a break below these lows, because the lows were not secure both in Nifty as well as Bank Nifty spot. We had poor lows on Friday. So that was a very important cue with the market profile had left, that these lows will be revisited and they will be repaired. So these were the hypos for today. You can see how 48533, the 28 Jan ATPO halfback, was where we made the low today. And from there we got some support and we climbed back into previous week's range and value. So let me just open up. So you can see how the B and C are almost at the same place. And you can see on the weekly chart how this zone of singles, this is a buying zone. This is a demand zone which has been held today in this probe lower. Although in Bank Nifty we made lower lows in the B, we could not extend the initial balance. So this was telling us that this demand zone is holding, and then we went on to make a range extension in the D and then again in the I, and finally into the close we have given a very small mini spike in Bank Nifty, wherein we have made the attempt to get back into previous week's value, and we have almost tagged that weekly VPOC of 49352, which will be our immediate reference for tomorrow. Once we get about this, we can look for higher levels, and on the downside we will have this uh, IBH of today as the support, because the buyers have been able to extend the range today. The level from where they extended the range would be one important support, at least for the open for tomorrow. After tomorrow's open and the initial balance of tomorrow is done, then we will take that initial balance as reference for the up side levels as well as the downside levels. So that is as far as the spot is concerned. Now a quick review of the questions which have come in. Shiva had a question about buying tails and selling tails. So buying tails and selling tails, as is already been answered, it's a zone of single TPOs, and the initiative buying or initiative selling tail happens when it comes in the initial balance, the first hour of the day. So most of the times the tail which we get in A gives us the most important initiative buying tail, because initiative some initiative activity coming at the open means a institution is entering and they are driving the auction in their favor. So A period tails always will be more important than any other TPOs. So and the same is with the A period selling tail also. So now let us move on to the futures, and let's have a look at the Nifty futures chart of last week. We'll have a quick at the look at the market profile, and then we'll move on to the order flow. So we can see how on Tuesday we left this extension handle in Nifty futures 23308, and we went on to trend lower, and then which culminated in this failed auction at 22900, which we have discussed last week. And we also saw how the order flow was supporting when the sellers had come in, and it was showing us IS on the 30-minute bar. I'll come to that in a bit and we will see that. And then how the order flow was showing us that no supply is coming in, the supply is stopped, and which gave us the bounce back. Here again in the bounce we stalled right at this extension handle. Here we got an RS, a responsive selling pattern on the 30 minutes. So when you're getting a RS at a previous IS level, it is telling you that the supply is holding that zone. And from there we went on to probe lower, and what we did in the probe lower on Friday was we were not making healthy range extensions, although we did make multiple range extensions on the downside. I'll just go on to the order flow, and you can see how this 1245 bar on 13th of Feb gave us that IS 30, and we left this extension handle at this 23308, and we knew that initiative selling is coming here. So this kind of a signal in order flow, when you are getting an extension handle on the market profile and you're getting IS on the order flow, you know that this is a good setup to go short. And from that setup we went on to make these new lows, And this was that seaside extension where you can see the supply is drying up and we are not able to stay below this IBL level. So once we confirm this as a failed auction, we got this IB30. We spoke about how this IB30 did get triggered, but was not a good signal on 14th, because once we got about this IB30 high, we were getting red caught. The caught was showing us red. So, and that is the reason once we got this bounce, we closed back lower at the VWAP of the day. But still that IB30 was in play as long as this 23070 in the VWAP, which was just below it, was holding, which it did in the close. So what happened on the next day was we got this uh, RB bar and we probed higher, and then we can see how the probe above this 23180 did not break below that again, and we were seeing caught turning green. So that is the reason we went on to make these higher highs, but this higher high stalled right at this 23309, which was the extension handle. So when you are looking for upside, you want IB bars, just like this IB30 which we formed. If you are getting RS and if you are stalling at a previous IS30 bar, you know that it is very good opportunity to book out longs. Yes, there is no case of going short here because we don't have an IS so far and we are above VWAP. But this RS coming at the previous IS level definitely tells us to book profits in longs. And what we did later in the day was after this RS, we broke below the VWAP in this 115 bar. So this break of VWAP was a signal that the shorts are now taking control. So with this 23257 as our reference, this was a good setup to go short. And although we did not make new lows, we took support at this RB bar. The path of least resistance had changed to the downside. And because the caught also was showing us reds. And what we did on 14th was in the probe higher, we got rejected. I'll just, there is a little alignment issue of the date. I'll just refresh the order flow chart so that we can get a clear view about what happened on Friday and what is happening today. So this was Friday's order flow where we probed higher, we got rejected at this VWAP. You can see how the demand was drying up and we are getting sellers, and the caught was red in the initial balance. So that is why we give initial balance so much of importance, because after the initial balance, if the seller is in control, he will drive it lower, and that's what happened. And what we saw, it was a rare seaside extension, but what we saw was a range extension lower with an extension handle. And you can see how we left zeros in the order flow bar. So this was very clear that the seller were coming back and you needed to be on the short side, remain on the short side. And we went on to form range extensions lower. And what happened in this range extension lower was, although the 1045 one was a good one, in this 1145 new lows, you can see how there was some buying coming back, 657 green at lows, and the POC was shifting to the lows. So this was more an RB bar. So, but as long as this VWAP of the 30-minute bar was holding, we could still remain on the short side. And because you can see how this pullback stalled right at this VWAP, but we needed an IS. Again, in this 1245 bar, the POC shifted in the lower part. So this was more an RB bar. So that is the reason once we took out this 22945 level later in the day, we saw a big short covering move and we got this IB30 bar. So IB30 bar, we have the rules very well specified. We go long above the highs of the IB30, provided we are seeing green caught and we are seeing buyers coming in. And the stop loss would be the low of the IB30 bar. So this IB30 did not get triggered on Friday, but this was still a valid reference. What we did today was we made a probe lower, we made new lows, but in the new lows, again, you can see how the A period POC shifted to the lows. We are not seeing much of supply here. You can see the cot also was turning green. So you know that the supply is cutting off, or whatever supply was there, they are booking profits. So the initial balance was closed with the POC shifting to the lows. So we needed to see an IS bar and reds at this level of 22840 for more downside, which did not happen, which is why we got this seaside move above VWAP. And once we got above VWAP, we made this range extension, marginal range extension higher in the D. And then we went on to uh, remain around the VWAP almost for most part of the afternoon before we gave this definite move away in the 115 bar. But what happened in this bar was we were not able to take off this 23054, and we are getting RS at this level, and we saw some reds coming in into the close. So what the order flow showed us today was there is no selling after the initial balance. So there was no case of going short, and then we got a move back to previous day's POC and VWAP, and we were not able to take off this IB30 highs. So for tomorrow, this would be our reference again. If we are able to take this off and if we see green caught in the order flow, then we can look for more upside. Whereas on the downside, because today was a day where the buyers extended, today's VWAP will be the important reference, which is around the 22944 mark, which is matching with that level which we were observing on Friday. So that will be our support. And what happens there, what the order flow shows us there, will tell us how the auction can proceed further. So value on the daily is overlapping, so there is not much change. So when you want to be short, you want to see sellers below previous value. So today that was not happening. And if you want to go long, you want to see buyers above previous value. So now we have a 2-day overlapping value, and we can look at the composite as a value area zone and then look to trade away from the value, or continue to if it continues to form a balance, then we can continue to trade the value area high, fade to value area high to value area low. So which is what we call the 80% rule. So that is how we are placed in the Nifty futures. So it is very important to understand how the small nuances help us in understanding the bigger picture. So not only we have the top to bottom approach, monthly, weekly, daily, then 30 minutes and the 3 minutes to understand the structure and the order flow. The market profile chart gives us the structure, the order flow gives us the execution, the exact levels. It shows us the supply and the demand at every important reference the market profile is giving us, and based on that imbalance of between the supply and demand, we can look to take a good trade with good probability, low risk. So what we saw and what we had spoken last week also, we needed a close below the 22,900 FA point to be bearish. So although we broke below 22,900 on Friday as well as today, we were not able to close below that on both the days. So that is telling us that the supply is not adding up below 22,900. So that remains one important reference for the rest of the week and the rest of the series of February. Whereas on the upside, we will need to see how we react to this 23054, and on the upper, you have this selling tail from Friday 23178, and then finally that IS30 extension handle where we got that IS of 23300. We saw sellers coming back at this level, so we will have to see the order flow and check if the sellers come back again. First at 23054, then at this 23178, and then 23300. So let's see how this goes forward. We have an interesting week going forward, and we will have to make use of whatever small nuances we can identify to get the trade in our favor. So let's now have a quick look at the Bank Nifty profile chart, and you can see how the Bank Nifty also moved away from this 3-day value, and the pullback at close on Friday stalled right at this anchored VWAP in the value area high. So today we went on to make new lows, and you can see how the H and J were almost at the similar place. Here we have this initiative buying tail. This was the 28th of January, where we had that overnight news of RBI infusing some capital into the market, which is why the bank nifty started to move higher. We are back at this start of that imbalance, and what we have done today is we have left a small B period buying tail there. So value is overlapping, and we have almost tagged this value area low. So if we get into this tomorrow at the open, we are looking for 80% rule, but we have this important anchored VWAP along with the rollover point of 49720 aligned here. So this is where we'll have to see what the order flow shows us. If at this level we are seeing IBs green caught, we can look for more upside. Else, if we are seeing sellers on an RS, we can look for a retracement lower. So Bank Nifty also is giving quite clean signals both in the order flow as well as the futures. Let's have a quick review of what the order flow in Bank Nifty showed us today. You can see how we did have a move lower in the A and the B, but in the B, you can see how the sell side numbers were coming down and the buy side numbers were bigger than the sell side. So, which is why we went on to get back above VWAP, and we largely remained above VWAP for most part of the middle of the afternoon till the H period. And then we went on to make this range extension higher. So the order flow is not shown as any IS or any IBs, but what it showed us was no, supply reducing at the lows. So let me just quickly take up the questions which we have before we can sign off for the day. Balaji has a question: how to identify if the low is poor or not? If you have similar lows, for example, we are trending lower, so a downside market will not get over till the time you get a reverse initiative player. The downside is started because of an initiative seller coming in. We saw that initiative seller coming in at 23,310 in Nifty futures, and he went on to drive it to 22,900 first. Then we got a bounce back to 22,300, 23,300, where we got an RS bar. And today and Friday we made similar lows. So somewhere the lows were not secure. You when you feel the auction is ending, you will get a very clean signal in the order flow also, whereas on the market profile chart also, in terms of a single TPO there. So what we got today in both was we were not able to extend the initial balance, and we have left very small tails at the lows. So that is a sign that the some kind of demand is coming back. Keep the queries related to today's session, guys. In case you have any other queries, you can just mail us to support@vtrender.com, or you can send me a direct message on Twitter or X. My IDs are Tutam Goel. I'll try to answer that. For today's session, let us have the questions related to what we are covering today, so that the focus is on what setups we are having. So in case there are any other questions, you can please post them before we sign up and retire for the evening and get going with our other course, because it's a Monday evening. I would not want to hold you guys back for any longer. So Virat, a quick take about the strangle chart. You can open the option table and you have the radio button on both the call side and the put side. You can select whichever call you want and whichever put you want. And when you select, you will get the strangle pair lower. So you can open any strangle chart you want, and that will open up. You can open up the line chart as well as the market profile chart of any strangle or straddle. We have covered that part in our sessions on the options, and you will definitely find that in a recording on the options table. So thank you guys for joining in. Have a great evening and looking forward to have another such session with you very soon. Signing off for now.